Adam Merlin, president of Merlin Auto Group. Today we're going to talk about likely my favorite and the only real modern Ferrari that still interests me, given my propensity and love to invest in the classic Ferrari, the pre-2000 cars back to the 60s. Those are the ones, to me, are pure Ferrari. We can't take away from some of the amazing engineering and some of the absolutely spectacular cars that are later model, more modern cars that are still true to Ferrari's heritage that we really do appreciate. In 2010, Ferrari debuted the 458. This is the last naturally aspirated 8-cylinder car that Ferrari produced. I'm not sure they announced that in 2010, but in 2015, which was the end of its production run, we all knew that its successor, the 488, was going to be a turbocharged car. The collectability value of being the last of anything that we talk about a lot is always a good thing. When you get the last of the model year, when you get the last of any special characteristic, look at gated shifter Ferraris. Why are they worth so much money? Because you can't get them anymore. You cannot get a naturally aspirated 8-cylinder engine from Ferrari anymore. And today we're going to talk about two incredibly special versions of this car. During the production run, there were 4 different model designations available for the 458. There's the 458 Italia, which is my favorite modern driving, daily driving, best driving Ferrari. It came in a 458 Spider, which was a retractable hardtop, and just like every other model, they made a more racing-inspired version, which was the 458 Speciale, as well as the 458 Speciale Aperta, which is this car with a convertible top. One of the reasons I love the Speciale, and particularly the hardtop version, is the different styling cues that it has over your standard 458. Some of it's minor, but oftentimes you'll see people look at it and be like, it looks like a 458, but something's different, and they really can't pinpoint what it is. We're going to help you see exactly what it is. The hood design with the vents here, that's different. There's different aerodynamic styling to the side skirts, to the front air dam, and you can clearly see them when the cars are sitting next to each other. The other thing you really have to figure is drivability, right? If I'm going to go to the racetrack, there's no question this is the right car. But if I'm going to drive it around town, this is a race car that is street legal. And in doing so, yes, they did an excellent job with putting lightweight materials. There's a ton of carbon fiber to make it perform better, but you certainly compromise a lot of the comfort. I'm not one that loves the racing seat style. It's hard to get comfortable in that, versus a 458 that has power adjustable seats that is extraordinarily comfortable to drive. It's quiet, it's insulated on the inside. The rawness of this car, I mean, it truly is a race car. It's made for somebody who's wearing a helmet with a headset in it. You hear everything, you feel everything, which is by design. But the cars are very, very different. It'd be very hard to say, well, I just want a 458, I'm gonna buy this one and use it all the time. It's not exactly a practical daily driver. As with any special, unique, high-performance car, maintenance costs and what to look for when you go to buy the car are among the most important things to educate yourself with before you go and make an investment in a car like this. I always wondered, are there different things that I need to look for if I'm going for a Speciale over the 458? And thankfully here at Merlin Auto Group, we've partnered with Wade Williams. He's one of our master Ferrari technicians, over 20 years of experience, and he's who I would consult to figure out the differences between these cars and what exactly I need to look for in order to make sure I don't make a buying mistake. So Wade, when somebody's going to look specifically for a 458 Speciale, are there specific things to that model that they should look for that are different if they've gone and purchased a 458 in the past?
Not really. The only thing I've noticed on the Speciale is the floor mats are screwed down, and they're not screwed down well, and they come loose and they slide. These actually have floor mats that will slide as well. They have snap-on fasteners, but that's about the only difference really, is the floor mats. They're never tied down.
So then really what we need to talk about are what are the specific things, if looking at a 458 Ferrari in any iteration that it came, are there specific things to the 458? Like we all know with the 355, everybody wants a compression test, or the valve guide's done, 430s, if the header's been done. Like there's all of those gotchas, right? Other than sticky buttons, other than wrinkly dashes, like that they all, we know they all have that stuff, right? Are there specific maintenance items? Are there specific things that you can tell us that we really need to look for to give us an idea of like what kind of life that car had before, or like am I in for some major expenses?
Generally with the cars of today, you don't have a lot of issues with these cars. I do like to look at the transmissions and the pressure sensors and speed sensors to make sure they're reading basically nothing when the car is still, because that'll tell you if they're reading correctly. Other than that, there's not a lot of things that can go wrong. You want to look at the brakes to make sure that they haven't been abused. Most haven't. If somebody tracked the car, put on a new set of tires, they're hiding that, but the brakes have been well used. You want to look at that. And that'll also show up in some of the full inspections.
Well, so I'm glad you brought that up, right? So like there's probably a lot of people that have bought Speciales, especially before they became uber expensive and collectible, and they probably did ride them on racetracks.
Right.
And then when I'm out there as a consumer and I want to buy one and they're going up in value and I want to try to get a deal, there may be some that are cheaper than others. They may have some miles on them and stuff like that. You know, I know that I wouldn't want a car that's been driven really hard on a track. You know, but I'm not sure I know how to look at the car to determine if that's been done. If I want to try to figure that out, what are some specific things I should look for to make sure that the Speciale, if I'm buying it like I would buy it for investment purposes, how do I know this is a good pedigreed one?
Adam, for the lay person that's looking at the car as a buyer, it's very hard to tell. For a professional technician to look at the car, one of the things I personally look at is I'll look at the wheel wells and the crevices around the wheel wells, because if you're on the track, it's going to pick up rubber and the rubber is going to be deposited in there. And if they don't do a good job cleaning out, you can always find rubber, big balls, chunks of rubber, and you go, okay, the car's been tracked. Other than that, the cars are designed to go really, really fast, really, really safe, and do it well. So you're not going to find things worn out, things damaged, things that are going to be a problem if you want to buy it investment-wise or on the street-wise. It's just miles, really.
You know, it's really amazing. Before we were fortunate enough to partner up with Wade and the other Ferrari master technicians we have here, I was always of the mind that I would never buy a car that somebody had driven on the track. It was like, I don't know if I thought it was like the abuse on the engine or there was something about it that made it where that car was then bad.
Right.
And it was only until I talked to somebody that actually knew what they were talking about, as opposed to me just making a false assumption, that it doesn't harm that's what the car was designed to do. You know, in some instances, it's almost more harmful. If you drove this car every day and never went over 3,000 RPMs, you're probably doing more harm to the car than if you were out at Road Atlanta riding it as hard as you can.
I would buy the track car every day over the car that's just been puttering around all the time.
What I found in looking at these, or any of these cars that have the propensity to be on a track, you really need to look for hidden damage. You need to figure out if that car ever hit the wall and they gave somebody a pile of cash to put it back together, and 95% of people would never notice it, right? Those are the kind of got yous you're going to get. There's not the mechanical got yous in these. This is where a non-professional technician, somebody that truly doesn't understand how the motor works, actually can come, and I would be able to tell that this quarter panel has been welded back in. And those are the things that are going to impact the value of this car, potentially impact the drivability, the rideability. Those are the types of things that become more important. It's the physical damage, the cosmetic damage.
That is correct. And a lot of times you can look under the cars and, like you said, you can tell a panel's been welded on, but sometimes if they just do the bumper, you can put a new bumper on, but did it go further? Then you look at the bracketry. Is it original welds, or is it somebody else just welding more brackets onto the car and putting some paint over it? And that's a really good point. A professional technician can look in there and see. Somebody that's not familiar with Ferrari may look at it and see that it's painted, it's welded, it looks fine, it's clean, it kind of matches the other side. But if you know what it's supposed to look like, you're going to go, no, that's been replaced, this has been replaced, this is all new, this has been done. It's done well, but still it's been done.
If there's nothing else you take from this video as far as value for what to look at before you buy one of these cars, especially in today's environment where so many cars are transacting online, there's so many purchases where you never see the car until it gets to you. You know, call experts like us, like Wade, have us look at the car for you. These are things that, while you think it's expensive to maybe hire somebody to send them somewhere to look at the car, if you miss paintwork on a Speciale that happened because of a crash into a wall and there's more damage, you're going to cost yourself 10x whatever it would cost to get the professional inspection done to make sure you're buying the right thing. So as far as Ferrari transitioned away from what I called like the classic real Ferrari, right, into these more modern cars that look more like the mainstream car, one of the benefits of that, it wasn't all bad, right? One of the benefits is really the ease of maintenance. And I'm not saying it's not challenging from the standpoint you have to know what you're doing, but Ferrari finally made it, you know, so much of why the 512 TRs and the older cars are expensive, it's the amount of time it takes to get to what it is you need to fix.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah. I mean, you spend most of your time getting to the problem as opposed to fixing the problem. It's amazing to me that cars are engineered that way. Like, why would you do that? But it seems Ferrari's learned a little bit, and with the 360 not having to drop motors for timing belts, it was a little better with 430s.
Right.
458s, they've really come a long way. Right?
They have.
I mean, I've seen annual services on these cars at like prices that I've seen that are comparable to Porsches or Mercedes.
That's correct, because they've engineered it to where it doesn't need a lot of work. It doesn't need a lot of maintenance. It's easy to get to the parts that you do have to change. And as an example, spark plugs will last an exceptionally long time. So you don't have to go in and change spark plugs because they're fouling out. The accessory belt on these cars, there's one, it's easy to get to. Again, oil change, keep the brake flushed, check the fluids, and drive it.
You know, and that's really what's exciting, because so much of what makes some of the classic stuff expensive, it's not even that every individual service is expensive. It's, you know, somebody doesn't want to spend the 10 grand they need to spend. And so then they sell it, and that guy doesn't want to spend the 12 grand. That's now the 10 grand becomes the 12 becomes the 20, right? And with these cars, because they're more affordable, they tend to require less, right? It makes it so much easier. Like if a service was missed or something like that, it's kind of easier to catch it up. Right? And the deferred maintenance factor is not nearly as big. We're fortunate to have master techs like Wade and like the rest of our team. But if you ask all of them, they will say in the modern Ferraris, they don't do engine work.
That's correct.
I mean, Wade has 4 engines over there out of cars that he's rebuilding. He's never had an engine out of a 458 to rebuild.
I'm waiting, I'm ready.
There's a lot of units out there, but even, you know, the California T, I'm sure the Roma, the A12, F12, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Issues with the transmissions, right? The DCT transmission we all know is a problem. Sticky buttons, you know, there's certain things that always plague it. But it's beautiful to finally get to a car that drives like this, handles like this, performs like this.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about having to rebuild the motor every 5 years.
That's right. And like you said, the deferred maintenance is a big issue on all of these cars. But even on this car, the main problem you have with deferred maintenance, we find, is when you don't do the brake fluid, it becomes a gel and it has little crystals in it, and you just have to spend time cleaning it out. Otherwise, the transmissions don't make debris. The transmission fluids don't have to be changed all the time because of debris and dirt and stuff that gets in the old cars. Engine oil, brake fluid, and look at it. It's a little sad because sometimes I'd like to have more to do to them, but you just don't have to.
But you know, it's interesting, you made a really good point. It pains me when somebody declines like a brake fluid flush. Right? However much it costs. They don't want to spend the money on the brake fluid flush, but then when it becomes a problem, they're hitting their brake and it's not stopping as it should, and they bring it here and Wade, you know, my brake pressure's weird. Well, when was the last time you had a brake fluid flush? Well, they recommended it, but I passed. Well, now your $600 brake fluid flush is going to be $2,500.
Right.
Because it's going to take Wade all this time to get the jelly stuff like you just talked about.
Yep.
Right? It's the value you have to understand, and that's why it's so important to understand what are the important things. I was dumb enough to do this without knowing any Ferrari technicians. The reason why I am so focused on knowing what to look for before I buy the car is because I've bought too many cars without knowing. It's a very expensive lesson.
It is very expensive.
And it's amazing to think that like passing up on what seems to be a relatively, in the grand scheme of things, nominal amount of money. I don't want to do a brake fluid flush, right? A $500 problem becomes, you know, 3, 4, 5x because it's just trickled down. But even still, that's better than the deferred maintenance on a 512 TR.
Absolutely.
That goes from 10 grand to 70 grand.
Exactly.
Right?
And I will say this, I have had a number of cars come here where the client had the service records, and last year he got the oil changed and they did a brake flush, and I look at the brake fluid in the reservoir and it's completely black. I don't know how much flushing they did. Maybe they cracked it open and they had a little come out, but then when you do it, there's crystals and gel and just garbage in the brake fluid, and yet he's been told it's done. Did they do it? Did they not do it? Did they just pour some fluid in there? I have no idea, but that has happened a number of times. So when you get it done, like you said, hire a professional, hire somebody that knows what they're doing, and get it done right.
I mean, to me, that is really the most important thing. You know, we have, I mean, it happened yesterday. We had a dealer buddy, huge franchise group. They have like 50 plus stores. They took in a Ferrari on trade, and they had a tire store do an oil change and throw some new tires on it. and it comes back and now all of a sudden it's got parking brake failure, all these lights, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And whatever they saved to have a tire company change their oil, right, is going to cost them so much more money. So whether you service it here at Merlin Auto Group, where we will make sure no matter what it is, you have the absolute best service, best experience, and best car at the end of your ownership experience, or anywhere else, make sure you are talking to a highly qualified, trained technician that knows exactly what to look for and all of the nuances, so no surprises come up when you go to sell the car and the next person knows everything you didn't, and now all of a sudden your price keeps coming down because they knew what to look for and you didn't.